Eric Yueh, Sarasota, Florida. Well, I came from China. I came from China at the age of 16 years old, pretty much by myself too. This is right after the communists had took over northern China. The city I was born was known as Peking. Today is known as Beijing. And I spent most of my youth in the port city of Tianjin, which is the seaport of North China. It's one of the ports that opened up during the after the Opium War, and the city is basically divided up with a Chinese section, and the foreign powers had their concessions in there. The British concession basically is like Little London. The French is like Little Paris. You got bobbies and you got gendarmes and the whole idea. That's where I went to school. It's where I grew up. Pretty much in that environment. Come from a family, not in the we are merchants. We're not gentries. Our family business is herbal medicine. We have the largest, best-known herbal medicine company in China, then and even today. And I'll go in later on. It's now no longer in the family, but that's the business we're in. And it was a very profitable business, and it supported the whole big family we have. And if that business started in the Qing dynasty, Emperor Kangxi, which is the grandfather of the famous Emperor Qianlong, which is the second emperor in the Qing dynasty. And we originally come from South China, but we don't have too much relation there anymore. It's all up in Beijing now. So that's where I came from. That's where we were quite well off, I would say, because that business is very profitable. And my father was the general manager of that business for the entire Yueh family. I lived in Tianjin because before he took over the whole family business, he was working for our own branch family business in Tianjin. And that's where I had all my early schooling. Of course, 1949, the communists, the war was over against Japan. The communists took over northern China, and that's when I came out. And the travel is pretty, in those days, because they just took over, is fairly, is not nearly as complicated as it had gotten later on. But I knew then it's probably a one way out and no way to return probably in the near future. I remember a conversation I had with my father. I said, "Why aren't you getting out?" And he said, well, he looked at me in the eyes because he says, I have too much obligation here. He said, this family business we got, there's too many mouths to feed. And also, my father was about, he's 25 years older than me. So if I was 16, you add 25 to it. That's how old he is. He says, I'm too old to go sweep floors somewhere, and I don't really have any other skills of going to Hong Kong or a place like that. He says, I'm staying behind. And he said, let me tell you something. This communist may not be good, but maybe better than what we have. Because the one we've had is the Chiang Kai-shek nationalists, which is really corrupt. And if you, in the Western world, probably don't remember, we had rampant inflations after the war because they're printing money. And you buy a day's grocery with a basket full of money. And the money, you don't count them by the bills, you count them by stacks. They're all tied together with a string of stacks of money. You buy those. The bills are like $20,000, $100,000, 100 yen. So he said, this is probably better. But that's where I went. And I had a choice to either stay or come out. And it's the first time he ever gave me a choice. He said it'll be hard because if you're coming out, if you're going to go out to go to U.S. to study, it's going to be hard because we don't have enough foreign exchange. Foreign exchange is illegal to possess in China by all the government, whether it's communist or nationalist. You're not supposed to have foreign money. So we have very minimum amount of foreign exchange. He said, you go out, you work hard, you can make it in the United States. So that's when I came out. Came out, got to Hong Kong, got my paper, and came to the United States. So that's where I started. Really kind of like from 1933 I was born to 1949. I came here and I went to a high school called Worcester Academy, a prep school in Worcester, Massachusetts. And because I was a minor, I can't go to, two reasons, because I was a minor and also because I'm not really a taxpayer. In those days, I can't go to high school because there's nobody to look after me. I have to prove to the immigration office that I'm going to a boarding school, take care of me there. So that's why I went to Worcester Academy. From there, I've always worked. I had to work. I got a job in the school. I used to clean in the school infirmary in Worcester. From there, I went to Cornell, studied engineering. In those days, it was 5 years. And it was really very hard. Hard to the degree is, number one, the first year was kind of a piece of cake because the high school kind of prepared you. But the second year, when the heat can't turn on. And those days, they have this thing that to make a real engineer, they're going to put the heat on you to see whether you want to get out or not. They don't practice today not full employment, but full student occupancy rule. The dean said that first day in orientation, look to your left, look to your right. 2 to 3 of you won't be here when you graduate. And he's true to his word. We had a lot of empty seats when we graduated. Everything went smoothly the first year. Second year got very hard. I was waiting table at the fraternity house for my meals, and by the fall semester, I was pretty much out of money, spending money, that is. So I worked in a gas station. In Ithaca, New York, in the wintertime, it's not that ideal to study engineering and work. And I almost flunked out. In fact, I did flunk out. And I said, flunk 2 courses. If you flunk 2 courses, you're out for a semester. So I went to see the man who really got me in the first place. one of the assistant dean in the engineering school, a gentleman named Mr. Moyer. I went in, I saw him, I said, Mr. Moyer, I want to thank you for all you did, but I'm leaving. He said, where are you going? I said, I'm going because I flunked 2 courses, physical chemistry and physics. I says, 2 courses, that's all that's allowed. I said, I don't know how I'm going to deal with the immigration, but maybe I hope I can get back in before they send me home. They could probably, I don't know what's going to happen to me. I was really down. So he looked at me, he says, you know, you don't leave until I say you leave. I says, well, what are you going to do with 2 courses? He says, well, let me see, what's your big problem? The big problem is called MONEY. I don't have any more money. I have to work, and the work is eating into the study. The study is eating into the work. I'm in a downward spiral. He said, I wouldn't worry about it. He said, what are you going to do this summer? I says, I'm going to stay on campus, and I got a job here working for the EE lab testing tubes. And he said, well, you come see me in about a week. A week later, I go back and see him. He says, you're staying because I said so. I guess you're assistant dean, you can do those things. So I stayed, and I got through. And then as I got a junior and senior, I got better jobs, and I got through in the normal 5-year period. Then I went to work. I went to work for consulting engineering, designing buildings. And this engineering firm, even today, is apparently quite famous because they did the study for the 9/11 crash of the World Trade Tower. The great engineering firm is a very small firm. In those days, about like 8 engineers with the boss and the chief engineer and consultant. And worked there. Quite by chance, in between these small firms or projects, you do everything. One day the boss walked out, said, do you have one active project going on? I says, no, I finished this, I'm waiting for this. He says, before you wait for this, why don't you go help the accountants to run his numbers for him with a old-fashioned Frieden adding machine. So I was sitting there pounding numbers. Well, turn on all these numbers we're pounding on is this tax return, which I consider my boss was also the owner. He's a Hungarian refugee. He's a graduate from Zurich Institute of Technology, which is the top engineering school in Europe. He's brilliant. He was making about $22,000 a month, which is a lot of money. But if you stop and think, though, with his brain, that's all he's making. It's not a money that you can really do well in. So one of my buddies decided to leave and went to work for IBM. And I had lunch with him after he left. He says, Eric, IBM is a good place. I says, but IBM is very difficult to get into. He said, you can get in. He said, you can do the job I can. It's called applied science rep. It was a cut between sales and technical. It's a really technical sales job. He said, you should look into this. I'll tell you, it's a good deal. And I think about it. I says, I was making about $8,000, $7,000 a year. I says, you know, to get to be like I'm never going to be like the boss. The work is fine, but I'm never going to be like the boss. I really don't like that much. I like to deal with people more. He says, that's why this job is good for you. So I started applying to IBM. Well, this is 1960. IBM was true blue, but it's also, in today's term, they're kind of racist then. to be hired as an applied science rep, I had to be interviewed by the division president, the data processing division president, a man named Gil Jones, great leader, great executive. And I remember I went in to see him. I was scared stiff. And I expect him to ask all kinds of questions about computers and all. He says, I just want to talk to you. I says, fine, Mr. Jones, yeah. Well, that's what I'm here for. He said, you play bridge? I said, yes, a little bit. He said, well, suppose you got this hand and I bid this, what would you reply to me? And I replied the best I could. And he threw a paper and a pad to me so I could write down what he's saying. So I was responding. He asked me a bunch of bridge questions, contract bridge. And fortunately, I know enough. Being Chinese, we do love to play cards and gamble. All right, that's in the national genes. And after that, he said, oh, good, that's nice you come here to see me. I was hired. I went to work for them. It was uneventful the first couple of years. And then I was moved from one small office. Well, the office I joined was probably USA, the smallest office in New York metropolitan area, Jersey City. It was a depressed area, not a lot of big business. It's all small business, but we had fun there. And then there was a request, an opening came up. They want me to go to the Elizabeth office, which is the largest office in North Jersey at that time. So I was transferred to the Elizabeth office. The Elizabeth office is ran by a branch manager, which is a very old timer. He's graduate from Princeton. If you're from Princeton, you got a leg on everybody. He is highly autocratic. The dress code enforced in those days is just unbelievable. Well, one anecdote was, he has rules. You wear certain clothes between Labor Day and Memorial Day, and certain clothes between Memorial Day and Labor Day. Okay, 3-piece suit in the winter, 2-piece suit in the summer. The only thing we no longer wear is cellophane collar and spats. And one day I walk into the office, and also there's a caste system. The senior salesman, junior salesman, and trainee, they're clearly delineated. Where you sit in the office, because I think IBM in many ways is always watches his money. We are always on a storefront building in these offices outside of New York City. And the senior salesmen sit in the back near his office. And the junior salesmen sit in between, and the trainees and neophyte salesman sits in the front of where the store window is. As you gain in stature in the office, in his mind, your desk is moved progressively backwards. And one day my desk is already in the back, and I walked in, I came in the office in the afternoon. He does not like to see salesmen coming in the afternoon. You're supposed out with a customer. There's no place for you during business hour. You can come in after 5 or before 8:30, but not 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. It was a September day, hot after Labor Day. I walked in just got out of my car, so I was walking into the office. I saw the boss coming out, and he looked at me, his face turned bloody red. I said, holy smokes. I must have gotten a cancellation, discontinuous letter without being on the forecast. That, you see, you get letters all written by the customer goes to his secretary first. So any good letter or bad letter, he gets to see them. So a cancellation and discontinuance is bad because we're all on rental in those days. I said, he must have gotten one of these. That's why he's so upset at me. And he looked at me. He says, first word is, Jesus Christ, Eric, don't I pay you enough? I says, yes, you certainly do, Bob. And I said, for Christ's sake, why are you wearing that stupid straw hat after Labor Day? I said, Bob, it's kind of warm today. It's going to the closet. He mumbled like, good God, like, you're just not trained. You're a senior salesman. You're a disgrace. And he walks away. That's the kind of person he is. But we lived through that. We lived through that. He's the man that told me, he said, it'll be very hard for you to be a manager because you're Chinese. You're going to say that today, of course. That's where my early part of IBM career. The rest of the career are, as I grew, I got better jobs, more responsibility. The people who had influence on my career, I would say there are about 2 or 3 of them really great. One is a man named John Bishop. He lived in Atlanta many years. He's down in Florida now. And he was my boss. He was a great, you're talking about leader. He's a leader. There's a leader. He taught me how to run the branch office. The IBM company, as good as they are, they don't give you a lot of training how to run a branch office. You kind of have to learn on your own. You know, because up to the point you became a branch manager, you are really in a sales mode. More sales, the better, the more recognition. But once you become a branch manager, you got to worry about things like, not only you got to worry about the sales, you got to worry about the budget. More importantly is you got to weed out the non-performing people. And to me, that is the hardest part to do, is to ask people to leave the business. And this is, in my humble opinion, that's one of the problems that IBM had when we went to dive in the 90s. We didn't get rid of the people. When I was running one of the New York office, we had over about 200 people. In a calendar year time, I will have 6, 7, 8 involuntary separation. And the Kingston plant has 3. That is probably not talked about a lot by these ex-IBMers you've interviewed. But to me was the heart of one of the troubles, because during that period, the CEO, who is too fair, he made releasing a person such a arduous, unless all the I's and T's are crossed, the person don't get fired, gets a second chance. And what happened is that creeped into the system very quickly, that people, rather than not go through that, they pass the trash, move the person from A job to B job to C job, continue, because nobody wants to stand up to that. And that's one thing when I took over a branch office, where Bishop taught me, is you got to have the guts to release them. I don't want you to be bloodthirsty, start firing everybody because they look crooked eyes at you, but you got to weed out the non-performer. And I'll tell you, There's no other thing sends the signal. It's when you cut somebody in the NFL football term that sends a message to the rest of the troop. The boss means business. And I tell you, I have seen so often these people just, young branch manager comes in, short term, in and out. Don't do the job. Don't do that job because they hope by then they'll get out. But these people just creeped in there. Then the company got into trouble. And I think that was set the tone by the very top through that open door policy at that time. That it really plagued the IBM company for many years. And the thing is, running a branch office is very simple. You want to tell the people you're fair, you're going to treat them well when they perform. You're going to be hell on wheels to them if they're not performing. And also, some of these people is, when you talk to them, you say, look, this is really not your cup of tea. You should be doing something else. Because they're not cut for it. To forget about IBM being a good company, bad company. You want to do something you're happy to do with. And they're really not happy with the jobs. That was one of the things I was taught, and I think that, which is, I think, that I always is my base, my foundation, what I believe in. You got to treat the people square. You tell them you're not doing well. I used to have a thing, I think some of my old managers will tell you, that the first thing they get hired at the beginning, all right, the people talks about, oh, they got to interview these people. I don't interview them. I get a dossier on who is the manager I want to hire. When I see them along, I say, oh, this guy will make it, this guy will not make it. It doesn't make it. What they say to interview to me means nothing. I walk in there, I said, let me tell you something. Can you work for me? Let me tell you, before you say yes, you got to be able to know how to judge people and move people in and out and fire them. Because no matter how we test, how we train, it's a bell-shaped curve. There's people on this side of the bell, they're sitting on this side of the bell. We got to move this side of the bell out and keep this side of the bell and move the middle, hopefully, just a little bit to here. Because you can't make the middle all the way to here. That's not going to happen. But you can make it the middle. You don't want to go downhill either. But you want to keep the middle to performing and shade them to the left you can and move the right people out. I said, and I'll teach you how to get rid of people. And you got to do that. And I used to have informal, I call them new manager sessions. An hour a week, about 8 weeks. Tell them how to run the payroll, how to give raises, how to discharge people, what you need to do, how you deal with drinking, drugs. As we go along, that gets more serious. Drugs becomes more of an illness rather than a sin. Maybe it's against the law. As our law gets looser, you got to adapt to it. But that's what I used to do with them. By the time, they got to be able to come in and tell me, this guy's not working. We got to move him out of the business, not to another branch office. Oh, that was the main time I spend with training the young managers. This is because the one thing I learned is because that's how Bishop taught me. In the process of being a branch manager, I realized that's a very good job. Okay? For me, that is. Because I had fun with it. I think you can do the job well if you have fun. And I look at all the other jobs they have, right? The guys goes up to, quote, headquarters. That Westchester headquarters, to me, is like a big hospital. All those people there are basically not well. I said, I don't want to go there. So I said, well, but on the other hand, company look upon the branch manager job as a pass-through job. You get there, you go there, do there a few years, you do the next job, you do the next job, you go up to headquarters. And you go, and you do, hopefully, eventually you be a director, maybe. Then I look at a director's job, which is supposed to be a good job. They're nothing but a department head. They just call director, that's all. I can call myself director here, too. It's not, but they don't have fun. They don't, the rubber doesn't meet the road there. The rubber meets the sky. And they have all these cockamamie programs, which is half of them during that period I was there. It's just crazy. They don't, just like somebody sold our CEO, year of the customer. What the heck is year of the customer? You mean next year's going to be not year of the customer? Next year going to be, what, a year of the dogs? It just didn't make sense. But these people are staff. They have to make these decisions. They have to tell the boss they're doing something. You see that in other companies too. Well, just give you an example, the Marriott Hotel. The Marriott Hotel, somebody stole Mr. J.W. Marriott Jr. that the fact that the shower curtain rod has to be bent. Okay? Whoever sold J.W. that concept, which he bought, lock, stock, and barrel, he puts it in everywhere else, including the small bathroom in courtyards and rooms that are not big. You sit in the toilet and the curtains come right at you. That's stupid. But somebody sold that. That is stupid. The other thing is, this at your service. They took off all the telephone on the dial, engineering, housekeeping. You put at your service. Well, some of these very top rated hotel have at your service. It takes 20 rings to get an answer. This is the kind of staff guys do. I said, do you want to do that kind of work? Just go have some cockamamie thing, go sell it to the boss, and the boss, everybody hates it. So that's just, I said, I don't want to do that. But I said, well, if you want to stay, you better be careful, because the job as a branch manager is transient. I said, you better find yourself a way to stay. Well, I pleaded this, I pleaded that, I managed to stay. But after a while, you got to move, because you don't want to stay in one place. Then they come and get you. So the first chance comes was we go through cycles. At one point was branch office have to be small. The branch office should not be too big. And then after a while, that's too expensive. We have to have bigger branch office. So we used to merge branch offices. And New York City business are moving out a lot. So some of the big offices become a smaller office, so we start to collapse the office together. So I become a merger of branch offices. I merged the branch office. I did a good job. And then, of course, we always have branch offices run by young bucks. They're fine, except they sometimes leave a lot of broken glass. So when they leave, those branch offices need straightening out. So I go in and straighten the office out. And that's when you got to go in there. But once you get a reputation to be able to do these things, you say to the boss, you say, hey, you're going to have to give me a pass for the first 6 or 8 months until I get this thing straightened out. I can't be measured like you want to measure me on everything the first few months, because this is a mess. You know it's a mess. That's why you want me to go there. Okay. I go there and do it. That's another thing. So now you're doing the boss's favor. Between the merger, of course, we had the big one was we killed the office product division, OP, typewriters, and we all of a sudden got all these salesmen, good salesmen, but they don't understand technical. They become the refugees. A lot of the branch managers treat them badly. I said, well, they're people too. And they're here not because they choose to be here. They choose to sell typewriter. We no longer want to sell typewriter. So we got to retrain them. We got to treat them like humans and treat them like employees. I think I made my biggest claim of fame with the people, turning those people around, trying to get them jobs, because they're not bad people. These are good people. There's always some bad ones. You get rid of them, but the good ones, you're trying to train them to do a job that they can do. They can make an earnest living, because their job disappeared. Their division disappeared. They're like homeless professionally. So you train those people. That was a tough job, and I had I spent a lot of time and a lot of energy getting those people going, different things, doing different things for them, and putting them to assignment where they can be productive. But that's pretty near the end, because now we're getting rid of divisions. And then, of course, finally, then we start merging offices again. We just do one after another. In 1 year, we split an office, and we split the office, and then we put it back together, all within 18 months. You can see why the company went into trouble in the early 90s, really the late 80s to the early 90s. And meanwhile, the CEO has changed, went from Kerry to Opal to Akers. You got all those things. In the meantime, back in 1983, I was called one day and say, we would like to, from America's Far East, the head at that time is a gentleman named Ralph Pfeiffer. You may or may not have heard of him. He is a tough, no-nonsense executive. Pfeiffer wants to see you. I was a branch manager made during Pfeiffer regime when he was the DP president. So he knew me a little bit. I must have passed the mustard then, because if I didn't pass the mustard, I would have never been a branch manager. So I go up and see him. He says, he looked at me. I know I was in good shape. Big smile, see how I am, and so on and so forth, because if I'm not, no smile, that means I'm in big trouble, right? But since he was not my division president, I have nothing to be afraid of. So he said, I want to go into China. I need your help. I said to him, I said, Ralph, I'm willing to help, but I have a job. He says, well, you can help me. I can get you on loan to me. He says, your office is in good shape. You probably can put one of your senior manager in charge and take 30, 60 days off. I said, that I can do, sir. He said, good. I just want you to help me. He said, I've already talked to, I don't remember who our division president is at that time. He said, I've already talked to him, and it's okay with him. He said, it's up to you. You want to do it? I says, you asked me to do it, I'll do it. So, turned out the project that he gave me was a pretty large project, was to put up a IT seminar for Chinese government department heads. See, the communist China government is, you got the premier. He is like the COO of China. The CEO of China is the party chairman. Because Chairman Mao occupied chairman, there's no real chairman. So they use the word president today of China. And he is the CEO. The CEO is the premier. 6 vice premier. Each of the vice premier are the departments. Like the Department of Transportation is under one guy, the Department of the Foreign Exchange, Finance, or but these departments, we're running an IT seminar for them to sell IBM's technology. As everything else, right? 30 to 60 days turns to be 90 or to close 120 days. The preparations, the blah, 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 blah. Finally we go do it. It was a rousing success. Turnout was the dress rehearsal was better than the real thing. As you know, sometimes when you rehearse, you're all keyed up and you're ready to go. In my mind, the dress rehearsal was flawless, but the real thing was just a little bit off because we're off our edge. We had everybody in the company doing it, and Pfeiffer was happy and everything else. Well, that's what 1984. January, February, we did that, and I was gone for from December all the way. I had to close the books with one of my senior managers, only with me superficially involved. But it was good. We did good. And then we go through that, and then we did the seminar. It was a great success. And that fall, the call comes in. We're now going to form IBM China. Oh, in between, I forgot a key point. I came out of there, and I talked to one of Pfeiffer's, America's Far East gentleman, executive. He asked me, he says, what's wrong or what's right about this? I said, Ed, what's right is what we did. What's wrong is you got to do one thing. You got to get out of there that Japanese marketing manager running China. He doesn't speak Chinese. He doesn't speak English. I said, remember, I've not forgotten about the Japs. Neither are those people there. I said, they occupied us for 8 years. They're not exactly nice people there. I said, are they like they're like the Gestapo of the Far East, maybe without the concentration camp, but they killed just as many people. I said, Ed, get him the hell out of there and put in somebody who speaks Chinese. I said, it's okay for Americans to speak Chinese. It's okay to have Chinese that speak Chinese. Or it's okay to have Chinese who don't speak Chinese but speak English. American Chinese. They can speak perfect English but don't speak Chinese. But don't put in a Japanese. I said, that guy there may be a great guy, but he's not your man. He is just not your man. It says those guys look at him like he's the bump on the log. I said, you got to get rid of him. I said, I don't say demote him. That's not the point. Just get him out of here. Put in the people who they will have relation with. I said, we buy things from people who we like. I said, if he had come to sell to me, I wouldn't be happy with him. You understand that? He said, put that on paper. I said, I'll put that on paper for you. I said, I don't care if Ralph reads it now, or even if Ralph calls me about that. Well, it turned out this way. Well, actually is what happened. I created myself a problem. That fall, I get a call from Ed Kafori, who wants me to go to be the China GM. And I said, holy smokes, this is not what I want to do. 84. I didn't retire until 96. I was 10 years away from retirement. I said, if I do a good job, I can mostly be there 5 years. And I come back, I have 5 years to go. IBM did not treat, IBM is not the only company. We do not treat people go on foreign assignment very well when they come back. You're out of sight, out of mind. No matter what, there's no promise at all. It's just when you come back, you don't have a job. I said, when I come back, there's no branch office going to be open. I'm going to sit up in the big hospital for 5 years. I'll be nuts, going nuts there. I can't do this. But I can't tell them that. But also, on the other hand, there's a system in IBM is if you are okay when these foreign assignment comes on, your own division wink at you and say, you don't have to take the job. I don't know if you know this or not. They actually wink, said, you don't have to take this job. So I didn't take the job. I pleaded some cockamamie excuse. And basically my boss just covered up, said, no, he's not available. So I got turned one down. Well, they put somebody in there who's American, U.S. citizen, Caucasian, speaks Chinese. He went there. They have problems one after another because different things they had, like I was asked 3 more times. But now time goes on. The last time is when they disbanded all the branch office. I was in San Jose doing disc marketing. And I said, well, it's okay, there's one more time to go. This is the time you can do and get off the train after this last and final assignment. So I went the last time. And of course I find China is a difficult place to do business. Very difficult place to do business at that time. Don't know what it's today. Because I was the Cultural Revolution started in 66, ended officially around 1976, 10 years later. Deng Xiaoping opened up in the 75 time frame, saying all these, that making money is good, not bad. He had these special economic zones and all these things. All those things were preached. The top echelon, the department head and the vice premier all understood this. All understood this in spades. But the middle level management, the directors and the senior, even some senior directors and the department and the lower supervisors, they have not gotten the word. They're basically commie pinkos. Okay? Those people are as hard to do businesses because they still think the old way is still the right way. It's the only way. I have senior directors of MOFTEC, which is the trade department. Our trade representative, that department in our government, There it's called MOFTEC. It's asked me clear cut, just in the face, just like you and me sitting here talking. IBM expect to make a profit. And I finally, I couldn't hold it. I leaned across the table. I said, Madame Mao, let me tell you something. If IBM doesn't make money, we will be all gone, packed up and gone. I said, we don't do this because we like doing this for nothing. We're here to make money. If we don't make money, then we go elsewhere to make money. I say the 100 people here working is to make money. Because, if the CEO don't make money, he's going to be gone, a new CEO will come in. You got to tell them the truth. And she was in total shock that I said this to her. And the Chinese, I can't work there anymore because I'm too direct. They don't go from A to B. They go A to C to D to E to F, finally to get to B. This is the way that's in the national. It's in our genes. But when you're here 16 to when you get to be 70 years old, 60 years old, you learn the American way. You don't do that anymore. I have a problem dealing with my relatives. Instead of asking you something, they won't say it. They say, well, that was the thing that you have to overcome. Basic expat have problems like that there. But that's, so I went there and did that job and came back and stepped off the train. What I learned from all this, you got to be honest. You got to tell the truth. You got to weed out the good people from the bad people, and the bad people and the good people. But most importantly of all, you got to do the job you like. You got to do the job you have fun with. Looking back, if I chosen the other course, I'd probably be dead by now, because the Cultural Revolution killed a lot of people, including my parents. They just say there was a lot of chaos. Well, a lot of people died. And the death is one thing in China. When you're dead or during these revolution, the only thing afterward they prove if you unjustly died, they give you a memorial service. They say we're sorry. We move on to the next case. It's not like U.S. The lives are not treasured in China. I'll be caught I probably would have been caught in the Cultural Revolution and died. But that's Mao Zedong got hold of the country in 1949. On October 1st, 1949, he declared the People's Republic. But when he declared the People's Republic, he doesn't have the whole country yet. The southern part of the country was still not his yet. It was shortly after he got the whole country. After he got the whole country, his premier at that time was Zhou Enlai, went to him and say, Mr. Chairman, we know how to govern the farmers, but we have no idea how to govern the city people, the industries, what industry we have. We should do something different than what the Russians did. What the Soviet, really not Russia, Soviet did, just nationalize all the industry and be done with it. Because that really set everything back. We need the industry people, so we need to do it differently. And Mao Zedong surprisingly said, yeah, go ahead and figure the way out. Okay? Figure a way out. They figured a way out. One of the persons figuring a way out was my father. He was running the largest herbal medicine, the best known herbal medicine company in China, in Beijing. We became best known for a lot of reasons. One of the reasons we did was when the emperor was in power, they used to, China has imperial examination. Have you ever heard of them? The imperial examination starts with the grassroots level, then goes to the district, region, and all the way to the national. And those people who come out of this exam as number one becomes high job in the government. Whether you have the ability to manage or not is not important, but it's academically, if you're really good on the classics and everything else, you get to be top dogs. Well, all these examinations used to go into, these people comes in for these examinations, takes these examination. Beijing was to take month on end. It's not a 3-day examination like SAT, all right. When they were there, we provided, well, we used to provide the imperial household with all the medicine. Very important, right? And when there all these people were there taking the examination, we gave them medical treatment at our premises in Beijing. They're here for a month on end, so they bound to get some sniffles and sickness. So they also, when they finished the examination, we gave them packages and packages of medicine to take home back to their provinces. So consequently, we became very well known. Because these people goes back, they are now important. And every year we have this examination. We used to supply this free advertising. So because of that reputation, my father becomes one of the many at that time. The other one was Yueh, which is the cotton mill king of Shanghai. The two of them and several other people got together. Whatever they formed, they developed a plan to nationalize the industry. But the plan actually calls for is they took a bunch of inventories and they made estimates what the business is worth. There's some fallacy in there because if you have a business one of a kind, what is it worth? Nobody knows, right? But so they still they still have to come out with like some value. So with that value, they turn it to the government. The government said, "Fine, okay, we'll pay you for your business, but you will continue to manage." So we don't have the situation like what we have in Russia, because all the owners are dead. And people don't understand their. So people like my father got to keep their job instead of owner to become GM. And they actually paid us quarterly payment for 6 years for the business. After 4 years, the government itself comes back and say, "We don't think those numbers you gave us are right. We really probably should pay you with more money." Voluntarily. And they decided to pay us for 4 more years, 16 more payments. 16 payments would put it in the past the end of the Cultural Revolution. Now, the Cultural Revolution started in 1966. The reason for Cultural Revolution today, nobody really has read the communist transcripts of their archived documents. But everybody do know is what is the net effect of this. Basically is all the people who were in power, including professors, become out of power. Student jailed the professors, workers jailed the GMs, high party official becomes low party official, went to jail. Deng Xiaoping was sent to rural Anhui province to work in a farm. The president of China went to jail because he was a capitalistic inroader. That was the name. And the Gang of Four ran the country. Behind the scene, Zhou Enlai tried to protect everything, suffering from cancer, sealed all the old relics, places, and postguard with the PLAs and so on and so forth. The country was in chaos. The country had no education, no industry, commerce for multiple years, and then gradually calmed down, but there's still nothing right. Zhou Enlai being the premier, but he come up through the foreign Secretary of State ranks, right? He's always had a great pride of training in the foreign service. And one of my guys worked for me who attended the foreign service school. After the Cultural Revolution, he was ready to graduate. Zhou Enlai walked into the class. He says, "You all think you're graduate? I got news for you. You got to repeat the last 3-4 years because you didn't learn anything." And he said, all of a sudden I see myself, job and everything just disappeared. I'm back in school for 2 more years. Because he says all the schooling in Cultural Revolution was no good. So we just struck that off the record. You start from this point all over again. That's the kind of thing happened. So a lot of people even had degrees that really didn't have degrees, and they supposed to learn something, they really didn't learn something. So it was total chaos. And of course, during the chaos, there was a lot of killings. A lot of killings by the goons, a lot of killing. My father and mother both died during that period. There was total unrest. But that's, I believe, if he had not headed the commission to, whatever you want to call it, to nationalize the industry, maybe he was named as the vice deputy mayor of Beijing, because the Beijing mayor likes him. He was never a party member. It was a purge of the party member, and the people higher ups were not party members. Even today, to be a party member is selected. You don't go just say, "Hey, I want to be a communist member." You don't join. You are selected to join. But those are the very bad time in China. Bad time. Some say Mao did it because he's afraid of a China Khrushchev will come out and attack him after he died, so therefore he eliminated all the other people. Thought he was losing his grip. Nobody really knows. There's a lot of theory, but no, until somebody opens up the archive and read about it. And that's where the real, it may happen, may not, probably won't happen in my lifetime. But it may eventually happen. It will be interesting to see what was behind the man's mind doing. There are several other ones that before this, people have suffered, died because some very radical ideas that he had. The Great Leap Forward, that he decided he was going to outproduce the Soviet Union in steel. Very similar to Cambodia, Pol Pot making rice. I mean, it's crazy that we had steel mill outside here, and the steel they produced was no good. It was not high enough quality. And before that was the 100 Flowers Bloom. He said, well, you should all, we don't do everything right. You should write and criticize them, and then how do you turn against them? But, we go through it a lot. Those are the famous ones that people know about. But each one of them, millions of people died. The Great Leap Forward is because there's no more, all your walk and your hose and all melted. The farm went dead. Farm was not farmed. If that's the right word to say. The farmers can't do their work because all their tools are gone. So you have all these different things that happened. But most of them they talk about, but nobody really knows what cultural evolution was behind. But several big names got purged. I mean, they're not just people like my father. He was just part of the indictment of a 28, 29 indictment. His name was in the indictment. You can read about it. But there's much better hired president of China. Liu Shaoqi died, sent to jail. His general that led the Korean invasion, Peng Dehuai, was Marshal Peng Dehuai, was killed. And halfway through, his deputy got killed too. Lin Biao, Marshal Lin Biao got killed. So there's a lot of things that went on. Nobody ever knows, nobody will know until they come clean. There's no such thing as freedom of information there. It's funny you say when we sponsored that IT seminar I told you about in 1984, the man that we invited us over is Bo Yibo. Bo Yibo's father, Bo Yibo's son is the big guy got knocked off just recently. He was the party chief of Chongqing. I met him when I was there. He was the outstanding young mayor of Dalian City at that time. This just before this job in Chongqing. What do I know? I thought he would go far, and now he's out of a job. China was just to explode. Okay, I think the 95 was the first year they made money. All right. During that period, that when I was there, we as a company do not have trading rights in China. What does that mean? Okay, let's just take a Western country like Europe, one of the European countries, say Germany. IBM Germany buys the product from the corporation and they sell it. IBM Europe sells directly to Deutschland's customer, be that Mercedes, BMW, Deutsche Bank, whoever it is wants to buy the product from IBM Germany. They sign a contract, IBM Germany delivers the product to BMW, to Volkswagen, to the whoever buys it, right? In China, during that period when I was there, we do not have the trading rights. And we cannot directly sell, even though we do have salesmen there selling, let's say to the Bank of China. If the Bank of China wants to buy a piece of IBM equipment, Bank of China first, you got to sell them, say they want this. After they say they want this, they got to go to the foreign exchange people in the finance ministry to ask for the bucks, US dollar, to be allocated. $2 million. They get the $2 million. Then they go to a trading firm. These trading firms, some of them are run by the princelings, which is a term there. They have high influence people. They're trading company. The trading company comes to sign a contract with IBM. Sign a contract with IBM World Trade. This is cookies all hell. This contract is signed on the hydrofoil between Hong Kong and Macau in the South China Sea. Okay? And then IBM World Trade orders the equipment and send it to the trading company. And the trading company then sends the equipment to the ultimate customer, in this case, say, Bank of China. This is a very elaborate process. And a lot of people didn't understand it. But that's how business was done. Because the Chinese in those days, don't forget, Hong Kong hasn't come over yet. They don't, I didn't think they possessed at that point the largest foreign exchange reserve as they have, say, today. And of course, the currency at that time is still not convertible. Like if you exchange money to RMB yen, you have to have the exchange slip to get your American dollars back in those days. So you have a lot of these things that goes on. And also is you're dealing with Mr. Lou Gerstner. Lou Gerstner's view of China is through Henry Kissinger. I hate to say, in China, Kissinger is assistant God. God is Richard Nixon. Assistant God is Henry Kissinger. That's very high level. That is 60,000 feet in the air. It's not what happened on the ground. Very difficult to deal with Lou. I mean, he did not really understand the problem at one time. Because he was not, I don't know, you got all these ex-IBMers here talk, there was great things about Lou. My view of Lou Gerstner is very different than most people. He's the man to fire the people. He cleaned out a lot of the deadwood. That's true. I like that. But also is he does not have patience to understand any problem. It's 3 IBM cards is all you can have to brief him on a subject. 3 IBM cards. It cannot be too closely typed either. Or 3 charts, 3 foils to bring up. China problem is a little bigger than three foils. He likes to come to China to make all the high calls. But then again, those high calls have very little value to the on the ground salespeople. It's difficult. It's difficult to see China from a Henry Kissinger level. From Henry Kissinger, everything's fine. But it's the Madame Ma's and everything else that really gets the best of you, make you lose your patience. And when Lou Gerstner comes, Lou looks at it at the big panoramic view. He thinks that putting a research laboratory is important in China. It is important. But at that time, China wants plants. And IBM was out of the plant, start to get out of the plant business, the manufacturer business. We want to be in service. And that has been, I think, is surprisingly we've done as well. Of course, now I think there's trading rights is not an issue. When I was there, those are real just problem. We delivered things into the warehouse of the trading partners, the trading company, and it sits there for. The rats catch in and eat up the cables and little things like that. That happen. You fix those problems, but those are all irritations. It prevents you from growing that fast. All the sales at that time was called off the books, there was a name for it. It's basically all like signed, the contract was signed outside the country. Let me give you the whole story. I just kind of glossed over it. He represented my grandfather to one of my grandfather's nephew, which is his cousin's wedding in Shanghai in 1946. My grandfather's oldest brother, son, came to the United States before Pearl Harbor. And after Pearl Harbor, he went to school at Purdue, and after Purdue, he served in the Navy, and he went back to China after the war. He married a girl in Shanghai. And my grandfather sent my father as a representative of the family to his wedding. And I was 46. I was 12, 14, 14. I was dying to go with my father, to go to Shanghai to see the big city light. And he basically told me no. Right. He went there. And during that trip, he met up with a lot of his colleagues, friends, relatives in Shanghai. People introduced him to a bishop, Catholic bishop named Bishop Yueh, which later on the Pope made him a cardinal. He was more pro-Chiang Kai-shek regime. He went to Taiwan later on. He met up with Bishop Yueh. Bishop Yueh has under him a priest, Father John Mao. Father John Mao and Bishop Yueh helped rich Chinese to get foreign exchange. Foreign exchange is illegal. Illegal to hold by any government way back long time ago. Communists, nationalists, through the emperors, because China was dying to have those things, and therefore it's illegal to hold. So people like our family has local business. We don't sell the herbal medicine outside of China. In fact, that was one of the desire of my grandfather's generation to be able to do that. But they were not able to do that because of the unrest in the world. Between the Japanese and everybody else, they never could sell it overseas Chinese, which now is a booming business out there. Okay, and he made the deal. This is what I figured out later on. It took me years to figure this out. It took me just the last 5 years to figure it out. What happened was we gave money, local money, to the Catholic Church and through the Jesuits, because most Catholic schools are Jesuits. Jesuits, through their organization, gives us money here. Is that money laundering? I think that's what's called today. And that's where some of the money got to here. Okay, when I came over, those are the money that I had here through the church. A lot to do with this Father Mao and Bishop Yubin. Okay, in terms of the school's range was through my father's friend, who went to Worcester Academy, who went to Yale way back when. That's why I landed into these schools. But that was basically it. I remember there was nothing talk about anybody leaving until after he came back from the wedding. Then I start to see my cousins are leaving. First batch of cousins leave in 46. Next batch left in 47. I left in 49. I was the last one to go. So that was really what I believe how the finance was set up. The school was set up by the friends. Because when I arrived, I went to see my uncle in San Francisco. The money was there waiting for me. It was delivered to him by a priest. That's pretty much the way with the wind went. Well, I was very fortunate with all the people that the dean at Cornell, people like John Bishop. These people really, really helped me. I was very desperate at times when I was going through school. I had in the fraternity house, I have to help me out, I have the Coke concession. I worked in the kitchen to get my meals. I have the Coke. The Cokes are a nickel, a 6-ounce bottle. I made 1.5 penny per sale, and I have a slot machine. It was passed down to me from some other brothers way on. I have the slot machine concession. And the slot machine, I set the dials how much take I want to get. Of course, the brother always complained that I didn't give them enough money, that I was jipping them, right? But that's the kind of thing I did. I had everything, and I had all the concessions, and plus I worked in the gas station. Never thought about quitting, though. But I did get discouraged. I thought I was getting bounced out. Well, the thing that crossed my mind is you have to be happy with what you're doing. You have to be happy in your own skin. Actually, I did not have any problem at IBM working. I was very lucky. I had good bosses and bad bosses. The good bosses, I work hard. The bad bosses, I avoid them. Oh, I have some doozies bosses too. Not in that way. It's not all smooth sailing, but that's expected. So you do all these things best to your conscience. If you think it's right, it's generally right. Oh yeah, and the other thing is I do rely on my gut. When my gut feeling is right, I go along with it. I don't know how you feel about that, but I do rely on my own judgment. At the beginning I didn't, and then I realized that that's generally a good indication of where is it going, what way is it going. I had a great time in IBM. Really good time, 36 plus years. Really from 1960 to all the way to, and I lived through a period of product, went from the 1400s to the 7000 series to the 360 to the 370s. It really was a great time. To see the PC came and really to realize that PCs probably had to go because we have trouble with that product, that we couldn't start it. Again, the product started in the wrong way, I think. I don't know how those professorial people feel. That just started, in talking about my mistakes. Can I refer customer name?
Sure.
Well, United Parcels, which is an Atlanta firm now, used to be up at Greenwich. United Parcels was one of the first to use large quantity of PC. And the senior salesman, which is highly respected in my mind, comes in and say to me, we got all these PCs. I said to him, Chuck, let's deliver this PC ourselves. Let's not use dealers because we want to get all the money because these things are not that profitable. The margin is very thin. Let's deliver ourselves. He looked at me, he says, boss, I think that's a mistake. I says, no, that's not a mistake. We're going to do it my way. I want you to do it my way. We're going to deliver myself. I'm just being pig-headed. I said, we're going to get all of the money. Well, turn out, what a disaster. These PCs went out to 2s and 3s to these UPS locations. They have less location than they have now, but they have hundreds of locations, right? I had back in my own little warped mind at that time is, if they have problems, I'll just send the trainee out to fix it. My trainee is not doing it. It'd be a good experience for them. Well, it turned out there's too many locations. And these problems, like some arrive without the head, the CRT, some arrive with 2 sets of dock, some arrive with no sets of documentations, some wrestle without the CPU, just two. Everything just came out wrong. I don't have enough trainee to cover it all. The senior guy comes in, he says, boss, we just can't do this. You're going to kill me. I looked at him, I said, you're right. That's my mistakes. I said, I've totally misjudged this. Oh, I can't send it. He said, we don't have enough trainee. Yet the whole office has to go out there. Will be enough. There are too many locations, too many problems. And he says, by the time you fly everything in and out, he says, all the profit will be gone. So you can see that business was hard to get in, and we didn't understand it. I see we're out of that business. We're at a point of sale terminal business. I think we sold that. The disk business we sold to Hitachi, and the point of sale we sold to, I think, is to Toshiba or somebody. Those things were gone. But still, the main CPU problem is still there, and they're still making money every time when they put out a new product, which is good. The office product division was disbanded overnight, and the people were sent to the old DP divisions, for whatever name at that time is. Basically, is that division used to be sell office product, typewriters, word processors, and so on and so forth. They've done away with it, and these are salespeople were absorbed by the branch offices in the city, and wherever they are. They were treated somewhat like second-class citizens by a lot of the branch managers. because why? I guess they view them, they're not the same type of people we would hire for the selling the computer equipment. Right? They're selling a simple product. And they're selling a product like a typewriter, which is a lot simpler than, say, computer. All right? And they were not really given proper retraining, or they just say, well, if you can't do this, you're a failure. I didn't think they were treated as well as they could, because these are loyal employees who made a fair name on them in the OP division, and now they're in a different world. They're kind of judged the same way, and they're just kind of pushed aside like, oh, these people are really excess, and they're not treated well. But there are things you can get them to do, which are, I think, very important, because they're not bad people. There may be some of them are bad, but that's a story of how you handle those. You handle those no differently than you handle the bad people you had in the office. But those people came in, it just becomes very. Because I remember one of them told me, he says, when I was leaving that office, they gave me a party at the end. The guy comes up to me, he says, Eric, the one thing you made me feel like I am still wanted. That made me feel good, because I went out of the way to try to be nice to them and try to do things for them, go the extra mile. He says, because some of my peers in other offices don't feel that way. That's how I found out that how other branch were treated them. But the same thing existed a little bit later on, that when they put, Frank Carey at one time wanted to split out the General System Division in case of the lawsuit goes in the wrong direction. We'll split that out as something to give up. This is the headquarters in Windmill Farm here in Atlanta, the General System Division. That was split out of the DP division back in the early 80s. All right? And they sell the small equipments, System 3, System 36, System, all that, AS400 and all that stuff. When that division got put back into the DP division, a lot of people feel that way too. It was not as trauma as what happened here. Rick Richardson comes from that area. A lot of people did all right, but a lot of people didn't do well. But it's always a problem that DP always feel that they're the elite. Okay, and so consequently, as the other division come back in, they're not treated as well. You got to work many years, right? You want to continue to do the things you want to do, but do you want to go push ahead for the brass ring, and you go up there and do all these awful jobs? I didn't want to do that. I had a very dim view of just because when you do your job at the field, you do interface with them. You realize what these people are doing up there. I never thought they would be satisfied to me. I don't know, you ask the staff people, probably they think that they won't do my job, which is probably true. Yeah. But on the other hand, I just felt that there was, where the rubber meets the road is, you get tremendous high when you win a big order. My God, when you win that high, somebody asked this, He was the ex-Giant head coach. He was the first Giants head coach, New York Giants, football Giants, to win the Super Bowl. And he's had heart problems, and then he came back. He won 2 Super Bowls, he left, and he came back. He had heart problems, but then he came back and coached again. They asked him, why are you coaching again? You had heart problem and all this. He says, I came back for one reason only. He said, when you stand in the tunnel in the Super Bowl, when they announce your team to run on the field, he says, that's what I live for. That was a thing that really is any coach would want to do. And that's what he wants. I mean, the heart is secondary. You do that. And that's what you get. But in sales, that's what we got. You got tremendous satisfaction when you win a big competition against your competitors, and you close a big order, and somebody trying to unseat you, you manage to win the business back. It's just, I told you, UPS. UPS for the longest time was a dormant account, and took this guy that I was telling you about that finally cracked it, and it became a gold mine. There's nothing in the world could compare to that, and that's the part I think what we as sales manager live for. The excitement to get a big proposal out, to go and got the order, win over competitor. That's what really excites you. That's not for everybody. A lot of people don't like that. That's fine. But I always thought that's what you have to do, and that's what I love doing.